All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we should be broadcasting to YouTube right about now. Let me take us over to the main page. All right. Hey there, Foundation staff. This is Sherman, but you can call me Sherm. Welcome to another Anomalous Broadcast from Site-42. For those of you unfamiliar with our show, the rundown goes like this. Number 1, I read you an SCP document or tale or something of that like. B, I open up the floor to the community to discuss what we've read. We're often visited by SCP authors, staff, and fans, and if we're lucky, the author of the article themselves shows up to share some insight. Remember that if you would like to join in the conversation yourself, I will be monitoring the chat in between chapters and answering questions, as will my guest. Hello, Jasper Waters. Good to see you. Welcome to the stream.
That's me.
That's you. Also, Darkstuff is here. Say hello to Darkstuff.
Hello. I am here. Hello.
Wunderbar. The rest of the rundown. Remember that if you like the show, do the YouTube things like leaving likes and comments, subscribing and hitting the bell so YouTube actually tells us what we're doing. And if you really want to help us out, become a patron at patreon.com/site42. Tonight, we are continuing the tale series Vend-a-Friend, written by tonight's guest, Darkstuff.
Hello.
How's your week, buddy?
My week was good, a little stressful.
Good to see you, Major. Glad you made it to the stream right at the beginning.
Our usual.
Yeah, this is 1 month in quarantine now. I hope everyone's doing okay. I hope everyone's staying inside, especially my American viewers. Stay inside. There's a quarantine. The Foundation really cares about stuff like that. I'm being told Darkstuff's a little quiet, so I'm going to turn you up a little bit.
Oh, alright. I could also adjust things on my side, but you know what? We shouldn't do it on both sides, or else things will get screwed up.
I hope that worked. I think that should do it. Major will tell me in just a moment. But in the meantime, do you have anything to preface Chapter 5 with?
Ooh, you always ask me that, and I never do. I always just want to have you get into it.
But I'm always gonna check. I'm always gonna check for you. That's just the hospitality.
Thank you. There will be ones coming up that I will have things to say about.
But everything about this one is for the post show.
Exactly.
I will say pregame that I'm very excited to get into this one because you've told me that this is the end of Act 1, but that it was meant to be the end of the story until it expanded. And I'm very interested to see where that goes because one of the TV shows I like a lot is that show Supernatural. And Supernatural, in the first 5 seasons, had a very serious through-line story that they planned and curated. And it wasn't perfect, but it had good episodes, bad episodes, but they were telling a story, and it made sense.
Yep.
And then the show was very popular at the end of season 5, and they said, but what if we kept going? And there's some great episodes after that, but it all becomes a hodgepodge of like when your D&D, when your dungeon master doesn't know where to go with the story.
Yep.
And you can really tell.
I'll have more to say about that when you're done with this.
Fantastic.
And also even more to say about that when we start reading the ones that come afterwards.
It almost sounds like Darkstuff's mic is being covered or it's far away.
It is far away, but I'm just afraid of turning the mic gain up on this mic or getting closer to it because it's really finicky. Okay, so I'm sorry for the noises you are about to hear.
Go for it. Let's do it. Dropping a beat with the mic gain feet.
Okay, how do I sound now?
It's going to take a 30-second delay for that to reach YouTube, but that's okay. You sound a lot louder on my end, and so I'm pretty sure that should work out. We really got to standardize these mic settings so that they're the same each time, shouldn't we?
Well, no, see, that's the problem with this mic, is that I have to change it every time for some reason. Don't know why.
Oh, no.
It always is different.
Okay, well, you certainly sound a lot louder on my end. I'm wondering if it's going to sound clearer or if it's still going to sound muffled. Tech.
Okay. Well, you know what? That'll be a bigger issue in the post show. So for right now, no need to worry about that.
Exactly. And so, as Tech YouTube asks, who are you? If you're talking to me, hi, I'm SherM. I am the person who runs Site-42. I hope that you understand that from being here on the channel. And this guest of mine is the wonderful Darkstuff, who wrote today's the last 5 weeks worth of stories.
Yes, well, the last 4 weeks, but then we missed one. And this is the 5th one.
All right. We are now kicking this off. It is Chapter 5, titled Be Strange or Be Forgotten.
And let me mute myself now.
I was nervous. Shaken and nervous. Terribly so. The past few nights, I had awoken to the sounds of helicopters, and I thought I imagined there to be voices reverberating through the space. The great dark woods outside of my window suddenly felt less like a wall between me and the rest of the world, and more like a great suppressor of my senses. I stared between their bars of bark and their perfect, ever-blossoming greenery, and felt uneasy. I couldn't fall asleep like this. I rose, closed the curtains, and then crawled back into bed. The mobile that hung over my crib tinkled softly, and the glow-in-the-dark stars around the room twinkled and sparkled at me. I had closed the curtains. Why couldn't I fall asleep? I pulled my blankets closer to me. I wished that Mom were here to tuck me in. It was cold. Darkstuff, is this Brian? Am I doing the wrong voice here? Is this a kid?
This is Brian.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I wish that Mom were here to tuck me in. It was cold. It was a cold, dark night, and I had work to do in the morning. I decided that if I couldn't get to sleep, then I would just get up and do it. I turned on my bedside lamp and stared across the room at the empty beds. This room was too red for my tastes. I was going to have to move. I opened the big candy cane door and exited into the hall. The kids' room's door was ajar. I peeked in and saw the 6 little guys fast asleep. They were all so cute, so precious. I gently pushed their door closed. There was a soft rustling once I had done that. Maybe they weren't as asleep as I had imagined. I silently locked their door. Didn't want them to wander the house at night. I limped down the stairs and flipped on the kitchen light. I opened the oven and took out a cinnamon bun. I hobbled over to the couch and laid down. It was hard to move now that I couldn't feel my right foot. But work had to get done as always. There was always work to get done. Another product to make, another hand to shake, another cookie to bake. I should have been a poet. I imagined that poetry would have been an easier occupation than toy making. Of course, you have to follow your heart. My heart was in tiny gears and wind-up keys and making education fun. I hated my heart. My heart had chosen wrong. It was broken. How stupid did a heart have to be to choose to work with children? I hit the armrest a couple times. I was slowly rubbing the bony part of my left wrist raw. It was pink and flat. I didn't think it was supposed to be flat. To my knowledge, bony parts of wrists weren't supposed to be flat. I breathed heavily on the couch before standing up again. I almost fell back down due to head rush, but held on to the back of the couch to stop myself. Walking towards the bathroom, I tripped on a Lego creation by one of the kids. Ah! I caught myself on the fireplace, but not without hitting a rib on the cobble. That hurt. I think I woke up the kids. There was a commotion upstairs, and the door was jostling. They were ignoring their bedtime. Again. I was going to tell them all about it in the morning. All about it. Yeah, all about it. I stumbled forward towards the bathroom, but changed my mind. I had gotten up to do work. I was going to do work. Near the stairwell, I opened a door that looked like a closet. It opened into a staircase that led down into the basement, down into my workshop. They were moving again. This wasn't any good. They weren't supposed to move at night. They could climb the stairs, and that would be bad. No kid wants that. No kid at all. What was that? I stood absolutely still. The house was quiet. The house was still. There wasn't even a ticking clock, or a dripping faucet, or a wind outside that jostled the windows. There wasn't a bird chirping in the night, a wolf howling at the moon, a squirrel that just so happened to be on the roof. There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. All was calm. Very, very calm. I must have imagined it. Or must I have? There was one noise now. My heart was pumping, as it usually did. It was pumping hard. It was so loud, it felt like I couldn't have possibly heard anything else. I felt unsafe. I felt absolutely caked in a thick, muddy paranoia. Justified? It didn't matter at that point. I closed the basement door and slunk to the real closet by the bathroom. I took solace in having a cold metal rod in one hand. I felt like a man. I never noticed that I was living life as a boy. But I was. I had been for the longest time. I might not have worked by kids, but my whole life I had spent working by children. I was moving up in the world. No, I wasn't crazy, because there it went again. A something. It was so slight that whether it was a sound or a feeling was indistinguishable. I felt watched. I felt that every window was a liability, every corner hiding something sinister and disagreeable. Sweat ran down my forehead like heavy rain. I felt completely in the open, but simultaneously unable to move. Frozen in place. My muscles felt like concrete. Even the kids upstairs had fallen totally motionless. Crash! I mean, it's no secret, is it? I knew when I was done for. It was a quality I like to pride myself on. When a project just wasn't working out, I wasn't the person who would power through anything. I couldn't do that to myself, not when I knew there was something better I could put my energy into. That was beside the point, but still. I wasn't much of a fighter. Not really. Not ever. As soon as the gas started filling the room, I knew there wasn't a point. I covered my mouth, only inhaling enough to rack me with coughs. There wasn't really a point. I didn't know if there was ever really a point. I guessed that it was all subjective. I started leaning towards the stairs, hearing the clear yells and grunts of men outside. They weren't a problem. I knew where my priorities lied. I needed to check in on the kids. The sun was coming up. Dawn of another day. I winced. Did I ever really amount to anything? Was monetary value all that I strove for? What were my goals? What were my ends that I needed to make meet? The sun was coming up, and it glared at me. I don't know who says, "Do you see the sun, kid?" So I'm just going to go with, the sun was coming up, and it glared at me. Do you see the sun, kid? Yeah, I'll go with that. Did you see the sun, kid? The stairs were quite the obstacle at this hour of the day. To think I had stayed up the whole night, just because I had been hearing helicopter blades before. I guessed it wasn't so silly, but it was pretty silly. I needed not to stay up that late. It was bad for me. I began to cry. Climbing that stairwell felt demeaning. Just another hurdle to cross. Nothing ever came easy. I guess that was life. My feet landed on something. My feet landed on the landing. You see that big ball of gas and fire? That was a door being thrust open downstairs. I sauntered to the kids' room, trying to pay it no mind. The door handle was rustling. I could hear the children as they clambered at the door, like little dogs chewing on the bars of their crate. It didn't do them any good. At the very least, things were finally getting resolved. It's circling you, kid. I felt like I had spent my whole life waiting for things to just figure themselves out. Spent it all just hoping that the next thing would be the last thing. Life was just a long, complicated list of things, and I never realized how tired I was of things. Needing to eat, need to drink, need to make money, need to make friends, need the newest smartphone, needing to be the best toy maker, needing to live. You're the star, Brian. I unlocked their door and opened it. They were all so cute. They must have been so scared. I tried to smile at them, tried to show them that it was all okay. It was a white lie. Maybe it would make things easier. I certainly hoped it would. All these children I had rescued from their unfortunate situations to give them an occupation. They were going to travel the world. They were going to be able to share the joys of childhood with kids anywhere and everywhere. They looked very concerned. It must have been the tool in my hand. Life's a show, kid. Bang! Bang! Stop crying! Bang! Stop moving! Bang! Bang! Stop screaming! Bang! They were on the stairs by now. I sat down on the bedside and wiped the tears from my eyes. It could have been so magical. It could have been so grand. It could have been so grande, so complete, so artistic, so tasteful. It could have been wondrous. There was never anything more tragic than what could have been. What was so close to being. What wanted to, but ultimately couldn't come to fruition. I tasted the salt and enzymes as they ran down my cheeks and into my mouth. There wasn't time for that. There wasn't time for anything anymore. Really, there just wasn't any time at all. Just as I heard people outside the door, I held that horrid contraption to my chin. Life was a show. And I was the fucking star. Bang. Chapter break. Holy damn. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm okay. I'm fine.
I've just been smiling this whole time, dude.
That was fun. That was fun. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
All right, so just as a note, so it turned out that those little things they were saying, oh. Okay, so wait, no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at the end, everything in quotation marks was... What are the quotation marks? Because at the end, it seems like he's talking to the kids.
The stuff in italics is him talking, yeah.
Oh, okay, so my teleprompter doesn't have italics. So what I've got is in quotation marks. And so...
Dude, that makes so much sense because I'm reading along and I keep wondering, like... I wasn't going to bring it up. Also, that I can hear myself through your speaker and that sounded, like, awful. Do I sound fine?
It sounds a little muffled, like we're talking through Discord and the audio isn't great, but that's life, man.
Alright. But I was wondering, because there have been all these, like, emphasis that I've put on certain words with italics, and I was wondering if you just didn't read italics, but that makes so much sense.
Yeah, like now that I've pulled up the document on my computer, I can see the certain words you wanted emphasized. Yeah, totally. And some of them I can see that, like, I nailed them from, like, but that one had a ... before it, so that was obvious. But, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, but question for now, for me, before I move on, is,
Sure.
Do you see the sun, kid? You see that big ball of gas and fire? It's circling you, kid. You're the star, Brian. Who's that? Is that...
That is the same. Oh my god, I sound terrible. Ah. Maybe it would be better to just like remove the mic that I have and talk into my normal speakers, but I feel like I cut out more when that happens. I don't know. In any case, it's the same person who was talking in To Think I Spent My Whole Life Waiting. One sec as I pull it up. It's, oh man. Yeah, I can see how this would be so confusing without italics, because in these sections where I don't designate speakers, because it's the stuff that's kind of in Brainy's head, I use Brainy's speaking voice in italics and the things that he's hearing in not italics. So that must have been totally lost.
I wonder if I can get a teleprompter that does italics, because I don't think mine does. Interesting.
That would be helpful.
And also, the audio quality in Discord is actually pretty good, I'm being told. So that probably means it's somewhere with like the microphone or the way that you can hear yourself in mine. Maybe I've got to turn down the monitor some so that I don't... Oh, duh, me. I have to turn down the monitor that I'm using to hear you. Idiot. Because I can still hear you at 60% volume, but now you're not going to show up in my microphone.
Yeah, that was what I was hearing, was me coming through you.
Dumb. All right.
No, that's all right. It's all right.
Cool. All right, well, hopefully that will work better for the rest of the stream.
Hopefully.
All right, so, because for a minute, like, at the end, after we did the ta-ta-ta, because once he's talking to, like, once he's saying stop crying, stop moving, stop screaming, I was like, okay, I know exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then I go back to the quotes from earlier,
Right.
and at least in my head, before I saw You're a Star Brian again, I thought he was, like, maybe comforting the kids, and, like, this is a look at the flowers, look at the bunny. But not quite. But that's just what I was interpreting on the fly.
Gotcha.
All right, well, let me peek at this and see what italics are in my future. This is all pretty plain.
It is.
Okay, so none of that's going to really get me.
Yeah, basically no more italics from here to the end of the piece.
Okay, even if there's not italics, I can put slants in around them at, like, coding to do that myself in the future. Good to know. Learn more every day, kids.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've got the mic on. We've got my mic. We got this monitors turned down. Let's continue on to the next section. So we ended on bang.
Mm-hmm.
Any hint as to who this is talking to? Is this just a narrator?
This is one of the things where, as an 18-year-old looking back, 15-year-old me was not the best of writers. And it was weird that I went between first-person perspectives and third-person perspectives.
Okay.
So this is a third person now.
Cool. Baxter turned the corner just in time to see the tall, skeletal man fall backwards onto the bed. He was wearing a black and orange pinstripe suit, and his big top hat with cat ears lied next to him. His face was painted to look like a tiger. The gun laid on the floor. As others searched the house up and down, trying to find co-conspirators, Baxter just stood there. The room was coated in blood, and the viscera of a handful of children. Baxter slowly stepped into the room and checked behind the door to make sure he wasn't set up for an ambush. The space was thankfully empty. He turned back to the room and thought that he had caught movement from behind the second bed. He rushed over to find a small Indian child caught in the side. He immediately radioed for medics to come to the second floor and held the child in his arms. The kid was in shock. His eyes were wide. His breaths were inconsistent. Baxter was never good with kids. He picked up the child and carried him downstairs just as the rest of the strike team was confirming that the house was empty. Baxter yelled for medical assistance, but nobody came. He didn't know what to do or how to react until the kid just stopped moving. He gave 3 short coughs, and then his head rolled back. Baxter stood with the child for a long while, just holding him, hearing the all clears go through his head one after another. He laid the child down on the couch and somberly stood upright. Baxter glanced to his left and saw the outline of another child standing in the doorway to the basement. This one just seemed to stare at all the people moving around, and soon someone had knelt down next to it, keeping a gun on it at all times, of course. It seemed genderless and shiny. Plastic. Baxter walked over to it, hearing the other operatives gathered around asking it questions, and making sure never to get too close. Its movements were stiff. Its eyes were doll-like. Its mouth kept opening and closing. It was making a small ah each time. The operatives glanced between each other, trying to find hints at what to do. The thing took 2 jerky steps forward, using only its left leg, and then fell onto its face. On the back of its head was a small switch. The thing jerked and shook and banged against the floor before going still and just waving its right arm. On its back, its painted-on shirt read, Vend-a-Friend. The whole space was filled with an inky black and a noxious, fetid smell. Baxter flipped on the lights. Baxter had seen worse. It didn't make the scene any better. They, or some of them, stared at Baxter and his crew. They didn't all have full bodies. They didn't all have full heads. They didn't all have eyes, and they didn't all have mouths. Many abandoned projects lied around the room, twitching and struggling to get up. One doll kept swerving and bumping into walls until it fell again. Sorry, YouTube flashed at me. Hopefully it's still streaming. Where was I?
I can check to make sure it's still streaming.
Noise. They didn't have full eyes, and they didn't all have mouths. Many abandoned projects lied around the room, twitching and struggling to get up. One doll kept swerving and bumping into walls until it fell again, showing that its face had been melted. There were scraps of plastic and parts sitting on shelves. Tools, both familiar and enigmatic, were hung on the south wall above a big, well, it used to be a green workbench. Most concerning were the husks left in the corner, rotting and being picked at by flies. Baxter motioned them away. I'll take care of the dirty business. Soak the place in gasoline. The operatives nodded softly and backed out of the basement, back up the stairs. Whichever ones out of the dozen or so that could look followed Baxter everywhere he went. Some began to walk, some stumbled, some crawled, and some could only try to move in his direction. Baxter wouldn't sit long enough to let himself get attached. He pulled out his rifle and aimed it at the first one. His finger fondled the trigger just as he felt a tugging on his back leg. Turning around, he saw the little one, a legless one, pulling on his pants legs. It was a smaller one, with a darker skin tone, and a green shirt painted on it. A green shirt that read, "Keep calm and read a book." It tugged a couple more times. It didn't have a lower jaw to speak with. It only had one eye. It was pathetic. It was terribly pathetic and hopeless. Baxter lowered the rifle and stared. Some others had made it up to him and were silently, softly tugging on his clothes. He slung his rifle on his back and picked up the small legless green one. He picked it up and looked into its eyes. Or its eye, I guess. He picked it up and looked into its eye, and it held its stiff arms out and repeatedly patted the breather on his gas mask. The small crowd of disfigured plastic children, some making small ahs, and others squeaking slightly as their plastic parts rubbed together, clung onto Baxter's legs while he held the toy. They held eye contact for a long time, ignoring the ruckus upstairs, before Baxter took the thing closer and embraced it. The little thing's arms waggled at his sides, its tiny, immature hands pulling on his straps a bit. The grunting of men upstairs, combing over the place for hints and materials and pouring fuel over the whole thing, slowly faded into white noise. Baxter breathed heavily. Baxter closed his eyes. Baxter squeezed the little thing and stood in place without any intention of ever moving again. A voice over the intercom. "House searched. Awaiting your command, Baxter." Baxter sighed. A heavy, angry, agonizing sigh. He put down the little boy, back into the crowd of malicious toys, and felt a weight fall upon his shoulders. The mission was over, but there was still work to be done. They didn't wait to see the bonfire to its end. On the way back, the team was boisterous. Another mission come and gone. Another story started and stopped. Another item on the paycheck. Hearing that the mission was over, Lynn had called from her infirmary bed. She wanted to know how things went. If the bastard was dead. If anyone got injured. If anyone was rescued. He assured her that the kids were all right. I'm gonna drink something. Oh, what a nice partner. Good gruff partner. Good gruff partner.
Baxter and Lynn are characters that I really want to come back to at some point, but I have never gotten the story idea that includes them, you know?
Man, oh man, oh man. Hooray. Good times. All right. I can do this. There's one more chunk. All right, guys. We're finishing Chapter 5. We're finishing Act 1. Let's do this. We're still doing a third-person perspective. Here we go. Although this one seems a little happier. Let's put on a happy third person. Excusez-moi. Let us begin. The windows were gorgeous, overlooking the city, showing the rides and the bright, cheery landscapes. The Fright Light roller coaster whizzed past and shook the room slightly. The committee sat in a terrible, pervasive silence. A couple sniffles and some blows of noses were the only sounds currently heard. Around the table sat many colorful individuals. Mr. Ribbit, Golly Molly, Mrs. Ribbit, Dr. Quack, Judy the Tongue, Cheese Louise, George Georgeson, Bob Bobson, Moccasin, George Bobson, Bob Georgeson, Smoke Ferguson, Taylor Itkin, Jet Fuel, Jimmy the Jello Fellow, Forgan Meeman, Bill Sipman, Vira the Party, Potato Reginald, Perry the Seamstress, Beryllium, and the current company head, CEO Holly Light, who held the honorary title of Dr. Wondertainment. Their usual goofy grins had all been wiped from their faces and replaced with various states of despair. Some stared blankly at the table. Others wept profusely. Some twitched with anger. One leaned back in their chair and looked at the ceiling. But Holly was the loudest. She wailed and moaned on her big purple and yellow throne that stretched nearly to the cathedral-high ceiling. Her usual well-kept, illustrious, mile-long white hair was entirely untouched today, matted and tangled in places and covering her face. Her towering, wide figure was curled over into a shivering, weeping ball. The left armrest on her throne had an automatic tissue dispenser, which she was threatening to deplete. Such a stature hid her face, but her perfectly circular eyes showed when she looked up in one of her many great moans. It was a long time before the meeting really officially got underway. Holly Wondertainment's right-hand woman, Tongue, ultimately took over the meeting in her place. Thanks, Darkstuff. It's everyone fun. Surprise! It's everyone's surprise that we gathered today to discuss Polly's growing no piano plant. She refused to continue working on it, and we have workers that have no projects to work on. We need to figure out how to put them to work. Any suggestions?
I don't like dodging around our problems, Tongue.
Smoke spoke up.
Just tell us the bad news and what we're going to do about it.
Tongue looked at Holly for guidance, but just found her chugging a water bottle to keep the tears flowing out of her face. Tongue wasn't good at big crowds like this, but if she wanted to be Holly's successor, which she did, she was going to have to get good at it. Why did this have to be her test run? She cleared her throat, licked her lips, and shifted her tongue out of Taylor's leg space. His foot and her muscles had collided a couple of times, and it was getting uncomfortable at this point. Wondertainment, the company, is arranging an honorary funeral on New Year's Day, 92nd Wonder Year, for Brian Harding right now. It's not many people are invited. It's expected to be just me, Holly, Sweetie, and Polly. Anyone who knows of it is invited, but our main concern is that people will disrespect him.
And why shouldn't they?
We're all still people. We're holding a more public funeral for all the kids he hurt. All the families of those kids have been invited. We're still unsure what our public statement on the matter will be. That's what we're really here for. We're all here to figure out what we're going to say. The room lay in contemplation for a long stretch of time. The Fright Light roller coaster was making its second round and shook the room once more. The sobbing had quieted down since the beginning of the meeting, but the room was flush with red cheeks and watery eyes. Mrs. Ribbit croaked. Smoke exhumed. Taylor hummed. Potato curled into a ball. Judy sat back down and let the room sort itself out once more, until somebody else was ready to say something. There was nothing to be said. Soon enough, Mr. Ribbit raised his head, and his voice cracked as he spoke.
We're sorry?
He looked gravely around the room, and then buried his head back into his arms. Mrs. Ribbit came up to him and hugged him as he silently shook in his seat. Then followed beryllium, jet fuel, and party. After that, Gigi, BB, Cheese, BG, Quack, Jello, Taylor, Slip, Forgan, GB, Moccasin, Potato, Molly, Perry, and even Smoke got up and huddled around Mr. Ribbit. Judy took Dr. Wondertainment by the hand, letting Holly use her tongue as a tissue, and walked her over to the growing pile. Pulling up pillows, blankets, and beanbags, the group entered a cuddle puddle for emotional support.
So that was Act 1, Vend-a-Friend.
I wasn't using this.
This? What's this?
This! Just take it out. Just put it there. Throw it on the ground!
I don't know what you're talking about because I don't have a visual.
Oh.
Unless it's the
Oh, that makes sense. I'm putting my hand to my heart and ripping it out.
Oh, gotcha.
Okay.
Oh, no.
That makes sense.
What's going on that I can't see? Yeah, legitimately, I got like a... It was a combination of, you know, the feelings that the piece made me feel, but also the feelings that, like, oh, I wonder how he's going to do blank. And, like, oh, I'm anxious for this section. Not because I don't have faith in you, just, you know, like, it's a unique experience having my thing be read out loud.
Exactly. You watch the show, and even when you know what's going to happen, you're like, how's it going to go? How are they going to do that?
I don't know. I'm going to try and lean in closer to the mic and see if that works.
Let's see if that cleans up the sound a little bit.
But until someone tells us that it's not working, let's just go ahead and assume it is.
Let's just believe in ourselves here.
I'm just not very well heard.
I'll let you know what the chat says. So, yeah, what do you got for us? Open us up.
I have a small list of questions. So first, I want very general thoughts. Okay, so first, imagine that this is the end of Vend-a-Friend as it was originally. Believe for a moment that there are not 10 more chapters, and that instead you have read and that instead you have read Brady Bryan's story from start to finish. What are your general thoughts so far?
I mean, yeah, that is one complete story. And that is, like, if this didn't have anything else, I wouldn't be shocked. The... Man, Brian. I'm going back to the beginning now, chapter 1, and our happy little friend Brian, except, and yeah, he got angry about being, like, scooped by Polly, but that's not shocking. You can be mad about that. That's not unreasonable.
No.
But then you go on, and it's like, okay, well, he's in the tourist trap, and he's got that weird anomalous morality, but as we can tell here in the final chapter, nobody else has that anomalous reality the same way he does. And so I'm wondering where he cracked. I'm wondering what parts of him were like, is this there's always been that inkling? Is there like something in the second chapter when he like accidentally kidnapped the kids and got shot? Or I'm wondering, but you were going to say something while I mumbled. What's up?
Well, I can point you to a couple places. I'm not going to explicitly state anything for you, but I can just give you things you've already read and just draw attention to them. So one sec as I find some. There is this paragraph, which I'll send to you in a PM, from chapter 3.
I tripped and fell last night. I must not have taken it then. I missed a dose this morning. My heart fluttered. I missed 2 doses of Risperdal. Oh, no. Oh, my, that was my bad. Oh, yeah. Oh, my, that was bad. I was told to take a dose each morning and each night, and I hadn't missed anything since I was 13. It had been so long, I didn't remember what was going to happen. I started twitching and picked at the childproof cap of the bottle. What went wrong? What happens when I go off of them? What am I like without them? Am I still brainy? What if I took them now? What is the worst that could happen? What if the kids found out? What if management found out? What if Tongue found out? I emptied it into the sink. Yep, that's certainly a scene of where things could go wrong.
That's part of it. But I'm not going to say anything. I think that anything I could say to that would be possible spoiler territory.
Yeah, because...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, because still, since there is stuff later, we can, like, leave that for spoiler territory.
So, what kind of story is Vend-a-Friend is the first thing on my bullet point.
What kind of story is Vend-a-Friend? Well, first and foremost... So... it gives me those vibes. I mean, the word is capital T, tragedy to me. The tragedy of Brainy Brian.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, when your hero goes through and tries and is put upon and then tries and is, makes a mistake and then tries, but now that mistake has curved them on a path, like, we're looking at bad things happen to you, but then you do bad things that lead you down. This is I got like Macbeth in my head there, like making the wrong choice based on the wrong choice based on the wrong choice.
Yeah, that is not inaccurate at all. I actually, when I wrote down that question, the word tragedy was in mine.
The tragedy of Brainy Brian.
What, if any, are your main critiques? Is there anything about the story that you actually didn't like? Because what is often happening on this show is that I'm not going to invalidate your opinion. I'm just saying, you want to be respectful, and so you probably don't bring up things that bother you as much as you might, So I wanted to give you a platform.
That is fair. Critique on the first 5 chapters. Was there anything since I have a general storyline in my head, that's all I've got to go on right now. I know we talked about a couple things during that were like things I thought about or like story beats that I expected or didn't expect. Let's see. We have Brainy's, structurally speaking, Brainy gets undercut. He gets angry, which the Wondertainment crew doesn't take very well. And that leads them to also be a cause of this problem. Board of directors. And then we have the banishment. And we have, while I'm going down this list, our friend Alasha asked if it's mentioned about someone making a Philosopher's Stone?
I don't remember that being in there anywhere.
Has it been mentioned about someone making a Philosopher's Stone?
I think that's a reference to Full Metal Alchemist. I think it is.
Yes, and all the bits of the children. Oops.
Yeah.
I see. All right, where was I? So we got then he goes into public. He has his bad childhood. And so I am intrigued as I'll get out between like Brian's sounds like a bad childhood and there's the medication that led him to where he is now. And that gap is like why we watch serial killer shows, because we want to know what's in that hole.
Right.
And it's bothering me now. And so knowing that there's more in the future, I'm hoping that's expanded upon, because right now that hole is making me go, But in the same thing, if you look at like a tragic thing, you can't get every ounce of backstory. That's what like prequels, that's what Hannibal is for and stuff like that. So then we got the car chase, which was a little hard to conceptualize, but like only like a 6 out of 10. It wasn't bad. It was just like hard to visualize compared to like some things. Wasn't perfect is all I had for that. And yeah, at that point I didn't understand that they were GOC, and I mistook them for UIU, and I don't know if that was a me thing. You mentioned that there was a detail or something.
There was a detail that tipped off some of the veteran members of the site to the fact that it was GOC, as I know by the comments.
Yeah, because the KTE.
I was thinking this was the foundation until blah, and it's the GOC. Wow.
Yeah, so that's a good level for that. Where like if you know something, then it opens that to you. Then we go into the woods and we're looking for the anomaly and how they found it. World's cleverest pedophile. That just kind of like, it's a good wham line, but it kind of like, I guess they're assuming that that's why he's capturing the kids. He is dressed as a clown. He is creepy, I guess.
Yeah, that was what I was more or less aiming for. It's like he fits the profile.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of anomalous things that kidnap kids for food or other horrors.
Mm-hmm.
And we scroll through. I never looked up what Resperdal does.
It's an antipsychotic.
Okay.
It's typically used for schizophrenia, but I never name Brainy Brian's mental illness because for a couple reasons. First of all, I don't want to demonize people with mental illness, although I feel like I've probably stepped off of that plank already, but that was 15-year-old me, and this story stuck around, so I've always been kind of prepared to have that conversation, but no one has been genuinely upset by it, as far as I can tell. I don't know. That's something that I would give more serious thought.
Is it a major plot point that that's the case? Is there something else that it could be if you were to, like, go back and scrub through for, like, that?
As I said, I never said explicitly that it was schizophrenia, because Risperdal is a general antipsychotic, but I don't know of any mental illness that does exactly what.
Oh, no. What I mean is that we're looking at a wiki where you can always go back and edit. I'm wondering, with an update of, like, not demonizing people with mental illnesses, is there, that could be, like, pulled out and replaced with something that...
I will tell you very, very briefly, because I don't want to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote with a little bit more of that in mind for the second part. The rest of it, I was a little more cognizant.
Oh, so, like, from here on, then it doesn't, like, make as big a deal.
I can't say anything. I can't that.
All right, so...
I can say that I was thinking about that while I was writing the rest of this story.
Cool.
What kind of character is Brainy Brian? Is my next bullet point.
Well, obviously, he's John Mulaney dressed as a clown. Done.
Of course.
But what kind of character is he? He's a character, all right. Well, at the beginning, because he's a Wondertainment toy maker, he's exuberant, he does what he does. He seemed to like what he did until later on when he decided that he didn't like what he did. And that's something I'm wondering about, is, like, he's kind of getting into that my whole life was a lie territory. The heart doesn't like what the heart likes. The heart is stupid.
I like those lines. Let it be said.
And so, good at his job, moves on, goes on hiatus, really just wants to get back to it immediately in a crazy bad way.
I've always wondered if this came across. Did you see that the idea for Vend-a-Friend, like the product, was kind of getting back at Wondertainment?
Interesting.
I don't know if I ever made that super clear, but that was where when I was writing it, that was where I was intending for the idea to originate in his mind, is like, make a terrible Wondertainment product outside of Wondertainment supervision and then put it out with their name on it.
You know why I think I didn't get that?
Why?
He goes through a lot of, like, hating the toy making. He goes, like, through this final rant here, and he doesn't seem to make it about them as much as I thought until you said that. It seems more about his choices.
And he is very self-involved, and that's like true to form, but I think that once again, if I was to go back and redo this, I might make that not just more prominent of an idea, but like explicitly stated at all anywhere in there.
Because that's
It's very
also
sorry.
that also makes me think like that could have really come out. That would have changed my reading a little bit of the letters to Judy, where it goes back and forth about how I had the inspiration for Vend-a-Friend.
Yeah.
That reading definitely I feel like it would have had a more sinister take at that point, and that change of voice would have made that play.
Yeah, I was when you were reading that, I could tell that you didn't totally catch on to how sinister it was supposed to feel,
Yeah.
just by the way you delivered it.
Yeah, totally didn't get
It took
that.
until later for you to realize that I found the materials myself to do it, but that was just have to be a surprise line.
Yeah, like for me, so for my path to Brainy Brian up until now, it was that capital T tragic thing. And I thought somewhere he went along the line, he's starting to lose things, it's getting bad, he's losing his mind, the meds are gone, I hate my life, this isn't what I wanted, I've made some terrible decisions, and
No shit, Brainy.
no shit, Brainy. But by the time we get to the end, I feel like his like mental breakdown is so focused on him, and there's a kind of narcissism where you're like self-involved,
Yep.
but his is a woe is me, I hate my life. And I almost feel like that ending, if I had only had more, this isn't my fault, this is their fault. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, that definitely was not coming across.
Kill Asunder, thank you for the tip in the super chats and the wonderful emoji that came with it. Thank you.
The very widely smiling Doge.
Exactly. That's the Brainy at the end of his life smile.
Is it though? He said he was crying.
Yeah, he was crying. I went back. He's a clown though. They cry through the tears. Or they smile through the tears.
They cry through the tears.
Do they cry through the tears, Sherman? Is that how that works?
I think they do, but I think that's not unique to them.
That's pretty much most of us.
I think so. Okay.
All right, so yeah, on the topic of
What questions do I have? I think we're treading a lot of the same ground because we just keep expanding on the questions a lot. But very briefly, where did you expect this to go? What surprised you? I think we kind of just talked about that though, and like what you expected Brainy to do, and like where your headspace was at during the certain chapters.
So for me, I knew he was going to make the kids. And that's number one. I knew that was coming. And so because the guys found the anomaly at the end of the last chapter, I knew they were going to break in. And so we were slated for a finale where I know there's Vend-a-Friends coming, and I know there's a infiltration coming. And so, because if they wouldn't have gotten that close if they weren't going to be able to get in.
Right.
And so at that point, I had to know, if had I been paying more attention to Brainy's self-destruction, I wouldn't have thought that there was a chance he'd get away. In the same...
if we didn't want it to be a quote-unquote evil story, he would have to die kind of thing.
Yeah, like...
To close the loop.
I mean, also the fact that there are more chapters also made me think that there had to be a way for him to maybe escape. And so I didn't know how we were going to be... like, because maybe he runs off with some... I imagine that some of these Vend-a-Friends have to make it to Wondertainment. And I didn't realize that Wondertainment's morality was closer to our own than it was to Brian's. And so when they were horrified by what he had done, I was like, okay, that is an angle, because depending on which Wondertainment you take, there's all sorts of terrible things those things do to kids or adults or people.
That was a very intentional choice. I think at the beginning of this we talked about how Venda was partly inspired by remaking Wondertainment.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I really didn't like about Wondertainment, honestly, was their overt malignant intent sometimes, malicious intent. There's a malicious can be turned into an adjective, or no, sorry, a noun, like they're, I can't think of the word. Malignance. Ha-ha! There it is. There's the word I was thinking of.
Or is it malevolence?
It might also be malevolence. Maybe both exist. I'm not sure. But they definitely seemed quite malevolent sometimes. And I was like, I don't like that. I like them being weird toy makers. So I wanted to make them be weird toy makers with the minds of children. Was more where I wanted to go with it. So, I have 3 more little bullet points.
Keep hitting me, man.
Alright, so now imagine that it's not the end of the series. Looking forward, where do you expect this to go? What are your ideas
So
of the next 10 chapters?
So Critical Brain thinks that this isn't the end of Brainy Bryan. From what we've discussed so far, what we've talked about, I'm just like, okay, how does he come back from that? And so I'm looking for like faking your own deaths. I'm looking for some sort of anomalous recovery, some sort of rescue. They're holding a funeral, but I'm wondering how that's going to roll. Because the only other way to do it would be to like pick up with a new protagonist. And I don't see this story going that way right now.
Gotcha. I, of course, cannot answer to any of this.
Yeah. And also, the story is called, the whole thing is called Vend-a-Friend. And we just shot the creator. We're holding a funeral for them. And we burned the Vend-a-Friends. And so I'm wondering if they are still involved or if like they were the catalyst. Like part 1's about the Vend-a-Friends and the rest is about the fallout for what happens to Wondertainment, what happens to the GOC guys. I'm wondering if Baxter and Lynn will be back. And that's an interesting story to me because, like, Wondertainment having to deal with this and employees and if they have investors, dealing with the investors after this. Oh my God.
You know, actually, I guess I'll fully admit this, that the investors are not involved because that is a great idea and I should write that.
Oh my God. Like, as soon as it came into my brain, it's like, the investors for Wondertainment are going to lose it. And that's such a good angle. I can't wait until you add that in or you write that branch.
At some point. I will say there are some tales, there are some articles in this canon, the What a Wonderful canon, that deal with the fallout from Vend-a-Friend that are not in the story, and are quite similar to what you have described, and maybe you want to do readings of them then.
I was about to say, bonus round after it's all done? Bonus round? Bonus round?
Perhaps. But I can't say any more of that right now. I will also let you know the next chapter is an intermission.
An intermission.
So, I don't think it's that much shorter than other chapters. Or actually, I think it is. I think it is pretty short, actually. Let me put it into a word counter.
While you double check that, I will answer the YouTube chat for a brief. Brian C. wants to know what the heck's happening here. Is there a containment breach? No, we're just all in quarantine. I mean, I guess the breach might be the virus, the viral anomaly. That is why we are all here. That is why no one's going anywhere. It's okay, though. I heard the Site-42 lounge has an air hockey table.
Nah, the next tale is not an It is an intermission, though. So I don't know. I think that there will not be a lot of post-script chat after that one because it doesn't really tell us where the rest of the story is going. So you'll have to wait an agonizing 2 weeks to get back on track.
Yep, because as the audience knows up now, I am not reading ahead. I am just going into these blind.
And I'm so glad for that. It makes this so much more fun.
What you call it? I will ask for future readings, since you're on board anyways for the times you're here. If you can, like, if we're hitting one of those points where I don't know who's reading, I might just be like,
Right.
who is this?
And I'll tell you.
Sweet. We'll have a code hand phrase for that or something.
Sure. So you kind of answered my second bullet point by answering the first, which was, what are you hoping gets developed? Which you said very blatantly, I feel. Unless you have any more to add to that.
No, let's. I'm wondering. Yeah, A is what happens with Brainy. Is he actually gone, or is he gonna worm his way out of that somehow, either by accident or on purpose? And if so, if he gets out of it, is he helped, and by whom? B, I wonder if Baxter and Lynn will be back, if they're part of this mission, or if they're just for here and we don't need them anymore. C, I'm sad the investors won't be involved, but I am looking forward to seeing how Wondertainment in general handles it. And is there anything else? Oh yeah, and D, I want to see where the Vend-a-Friends either come into it. If they're gone, it'd be interesting if there was like something that I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be around or if like this was enough and the ripples are after that. So yeah, I think that's what I'm looking forward to seeing in the next sections.
And the very last bullet point is just, what concerns do you have going? So you've said what you hope gets developed and what questions you have. What are you thinking, like what pitfalls could this fall into that you wouldn't like?
So this story, where would I not want this to go? And so...
And if you just guess exactly what it is, I'll have that poker face. You're like, yep, it's fine. I love it.
Smile through the tears. Cry through the tears, Darkstuff. So, what I would be... What I don't want to see. See, that's hard because I like a lot of things. And, like, I'm especially a fan of, like, garbage for the sake of garbage. We talked about Supernatural at the beginning. And I won't cop to that being a good show. I'll cop to it being a bad show that I enjoy. Much like Riverdale. It's garbage, but it's fun garbage.
Right.
And so I can, like, see from a lot of perspectives things where, like, this might not be for me, but it's good at what it's doing, which is a critical technique that a lot of people could learn.
Yeah, I have the same thing. I mean, there's a middle ground. If something that's boring is worse than something that's bad. Because bad can be fun.
What do I not want to see from Vend-a-Friend right now?
No, I'm glad you're having a hard time with this one, because that means that I probably will stumble into that.
Yeah, right now, like, you've got a good, solid story here. It ended. The fact there's more has me going, what the hell could be coming?
And that was pretty much the challenge I was faced with as well. I do have a reason why it continued, like why I got the inspiration to continue it. But to say what that inspiration is kind of a spoiler, because then you can guess a little bit of where it's going. But I will say that I also had the moment of like, well, I just killed the protagonist. Like, what do I do? And I really hope that what I end up doing doesn't feel cheap.
Well, I am worried about the concept of I'd say like 2 out of 10. I'm worried about the concept of like a new protagonist. Like, we've had all this first person from Brainy Brian's perspective. And then we had some third person. And so if the rest of the story is like third person, that would make sense to me because our protagonist is gone. It makes sense that a story would have a protagonist, but I just can't imagine who or what or why would they be doing what they're doing yet.
Right.
I think the trite thing and this one either goes into the it's bad and I don't like it category, or it's bad and I love it category, and that's going to be based on how it's done. Is the new protagonist is a Vend-a-Friend. Bwah!
That's a hilarious idea. I probably am giving it away. That's true. But that's awesome.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I would be afraid of. I'm afraid of new protagonists in general, and if the Vend-a-Friend is the protagonist, I'm just gonna go like galaxy brain.
Gotcha. All right. I don't. Yeah. I wonder how next week is gonna look, because it's gonna be an intermission, and you're still gonna be left wondering what's going on.
So it'll probably be a shorter stream. I expect the live streams normally go for like 25 to an hour and a half, depending on how long we're going.
Right, and we've just about hit an hour and 10 minutes. In fact, we have hit an hour and 10 minutes. So I think that I want to go eat dinner.
That sounds fantastic.
I think it's a good idea, yeah.
Well, I tip my hat to Act 1. The story at large is a self-contained tragic ride, but it's a fun tragedy. I had a blast with it.
I had a blast writing it. Like, seriously, still one of my favorite things during the process of writing. I mean, it is one of my favorite things I've written, but definitely not my favorite of all time. But it might have been the most fun I had writing. You know? Brady is just such a fun perspective to write from. It made these first 5 chapters really, really fun for me. Alright, well, I think I gotta go now.
Indeed. You go have a good dinner. I'll conclude the sign-off right here. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has been a blast having you. Thank you again to Darkstuff for joining us and giving perspective and having a really solid critique conversation and like a back and forth. That's the stuff you come for, is the deep writing stuff. Thank you guys for coming and enjoying the show. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you comment. Make sure you subscribe, hit bells, become patrons. Go to the SCP Wiki and upvote. Go upvote the SCP article that we wrote. The link is in the description. Thank you guys for coming. We'll see you guys at our next Anomalous Broadcast from Site-42. Signing off.